Hi everyone, welcome back to Safe Space. My name is Buse, and today I'll be talking about a topic I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to or have been told. So the topic is being told that you're too much. And I want to talk a little bit about my own experiences and then what I did or how to best handle the situation of being told you're too much, or even being told you're too little, or you're not doing this enough, or you're not doing that enough. And people will always have something to say, right? People will always project their own feelings and emotions and their own shortcomings onto others. We all do. It's not like I'm trying to trash people here, but when it's like a consistent pattern in your life, being told you're too much by certain people, or you're not doing certain things enough, or you're just doing too much, it becomes like a burden on ourselves to correct our behavior to fit into this structure of, what this person wants us to be. And it's definitely not a good way to live. It's not a healthy place to be in your mind, and also in the relationship that you have with that person. So let's get right into it. First, I want to start off by saying that a lot of the times, and I think I mentioned this in the intro, but I'll start off with this. The person that is like projecting their own feelings of trying to filter themselves so much, or trying to be their authentic self, will project themselves onto you by saying you're doing too much. Or someone who just basically doesn't want you to be who you are, because whatever benefit they're getting from it is helping them in some way. And there's extremes to everything, and I'm not saying this is like every person out there that tells you that you're too much is doing it because of these negative reasons. Sometimes it is simply that they're struggling within themselves to be their authentic selves and express themselves naturally without having to filter and trying to correct their every thought and trying to say it the perfect way, or trying to make sure that they are seen by other people as good. One thing I know for sure is that you can't predict or control other people's perceptions of you. And it goes to say that, when you're looking at these people that are telling you too much, it's simply that's their perception of you. Whether it's simply that they can't be themselves, or that they try to hold on to things, control things, whatever it is, that they try to control people around them, or they try to project their own feelings onto other people as a means to get it under control. Their mind, their emotional state is just not stable enough for them to differentiate between what is another person's action versus what's their perception of it. And there are some times that you will meet people, or you have known people for a long time, that you just interact with them in a moment and they're saying things that are outrageous or that you just don't agree with. That's a whole different topic, or that's a whole different thing. But if you are being judged by being told that you're too much because of something that you believe in, something that you're doing, or you're just having fun, you're enjoying yourself, and someone is just, not able to handle that, that's okay. It means that you probably need to go and find better people, find other people, not even better, but just find other people that are willing to be on the same level of too muchness as you are, I guess you can say, but just on the same level of enthusiasm, energy, vibration, whatever you want to call it. Like, you don't want to be around people that are always low. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but if they're always being negative and critical, it just is an indicator that they are genuinely not doing well within themselves. And there's nothing that you can do for other people unless they want your help. And if this person is not asking for help, is not doing anything to better themselves, but they're just telling you you're being too much, or you're being too sensitive, or you're being too whatever it is, fill in the blank. And with that, like, you're putting yourself down by being in the same space as this person. You're affecting your own mental health. You're now questioning your own self, whether you're doing certain things. Like, you're becoming so self-conscious of every thought, every idea, every word that you speak, every behavior that you have, every action that you take. They're making you walk on eggshells. And now you're constantly trying to control and filter and maneuver around this person. And it's definitely not a healthy place to be. I will give you guys an example here. So I remember on my birthday last year, I went on a trip with my family, and on that trip we were having such a good time. I mean, obviously it's my birthday. I was, you know, trying to have fun, enjoy myself. I wasn't like partying or anything, but we were literally just driving in the car, in the rental car that we had, and I was dancing and singing to the music that was in the car. And then all of a sudden my sister goes, "You're being too much." But she was like serious. It wasn't like a joke. And I could tell when someone's joking with me, because I'm a sarcastic person, even though maybe I don't seem like it all the time. Once I get comfortable with people, I can be super sarcastic. So I can tell when someone's joking around with me, and I can joke around back. But this time around, I knew it wasn't the case, because when she looked at me, she just had a look on her face like, "You're being too much," kind of like that. And then all of a sudden, like, I remember my whole, like, my behavior, everything just changed. Like, in that moment, I got super uncomfortable. I was like, okay, like, maybe I should stop dancing. Maybe I should just watch the view that we're driving by. And I think the rest of the ride that's pretty much what I did. But I will say, like, that trip turned around to be like worse than what I had hoped it would be, because of me having to walk around eggshells, or on eggshells, sorry, or trying to not be too much, or trying to filter myself around her, because then I felt uncomfortable. And, you know, this is like an example. I hope it can be helpful for other people, whether you've been in situations like this, whether you're having fun or doing something and all of a sudden someone makes a comment. It has a lot more to do with them than you. So a lot of times it's a projection of their own feelings. It's maybe, for example, in my case, my sister wasn't able to enjoy herself, have fun, and let go, and just have a good time, I guess, that she was projecting her own discomfort of like having to filter herself onto me. I mean, I'm not justifying her actions at all, because, you know, everyone makes mistakes, but at the same time, when it becomes a pattern, then it's an issue as well. So, and this is hopefully a good example, but if you guys can think of examples for yourself that you've experienced, and then just reflect on how, like, what could the other person be going through that they're just like projecting this onto me. And hopefully in some way that's helpful. But to kind of summarize it all together, in the context of what to do in scenarios like this, like when you're at work, when you're with family, when you're with friends, because I still struggle with this sometimes, but I will try to give you guys the most like helpful thing that I do for myself in situations like this, and, you know, hopefully it's helpful. So in case that it's at work, I would say if you're literally like in person with someone and they make a comment about you're being too much, or you're being something, and I guess it's also important in that scenario to look at the context of what you're doing, because obviously depending on the work that you have, you might be in a more professional environment, you might be at lunch, which is a completely different thing than being in a meeting with someone or with a group of people. So it's important to look at whether you're in a more relaxed environment or in a more professional environment. So in that context, if it's in a more professional environment, I think it's important to make sure that you're being professional, because you are at work. And what you present to other people is their perception of you, and it is important to, especially for work, portray a good image of yourself, one that is professional. And if it's in a lunch environment or in a more relaxed after hours type of thing after work, I think, you know, it's good to know what your boundaries are with your coworkers. If you're okay with being friends with people outside of work, then it's definitely helpful to be yourself. But maybe you might still keep certain things to yourself, certain things personal and private, you might not share with them because obviously you see them at work and you might not want to cross certain boundaries that you have with yourself. But in the context of, you know, a more relaxed environment, obviously, you can always just decide to leave early. You can tell the group that you have something else to go and do that day, or you have to get back home for a certain reason, or you have to stop somewhere to do something, or you can simply just for that moment, if you're feeling overwhelmed, remove yourself, whether that's going to the bathroom or just going outside to get something from your car and just like taking a few minutes. Sometimes it's helpful to regulate our own emotions in the moment rather than also projecting our own negative feelings onto someone else by retaliating what they're saying or making it into an argument. It's better to regulate yourself. If it's in the context of whether, you know, if it's like a dialogue, you're just having a natural conversation, then I think sometimes you have to know what you want to share with people. But in the context of like you're just doing something and then they make a comment randomly out of nowhere, then I think you might get overwhelmed. I get stressed, for example, like when someone makes a comment that I'm not comfortable with or that I'm not like, you know, aware of in the moment that I'm doing, then I will like get overwhelmed. And I you know, tend to have a little bit of social anxiety around people, especially big groups of people that I don't know. So I think in that context, it's important to know your boundaries, know when to step away, know when to leave. And if you are having a natural conversation, just keep it going, but maybe change the topic to something else. Let's say in the context of friendships, obviously that's a lot closer of a relationship than coworkers or colleagues, but I think it's important to know the level of comfort that you have with certain friends and what you can and can't share and how they will react based on, you know, your observations or your friendships with them over the years. It still comes down to a boundary thing, like how much are you willing to share with everyone or certain people in your life. So in the context of friends, how much are you willing to share with a specific person? How close are you guys? Is this like a 5-year long friendship, or is it like you've just been friends for 6 months? You know, that's going to be, you know, you have to weigh that out for yourself to see what is how you should approach it, or what is the best way to approach this in that context. And yeah, it's knowing yourself, knowing when to leave, so kind of the same thing that applies here with coworkers, knowing when to step away if you're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe just act like you're taking a phone call, or you don't have to lie to people. You can just tell them you're gonna step to the bathroom for a second because you gotta use the bathroom, but you don't need to have other people dictate your emotions, you know, if that makes sense. You have to learn, like I said, to regulate your own emotions at some point. But I think similarly, what you have with colleagues and coworkers do apply to or does apply to friendships as well. It just depends on how close you are and how much you want to share and how comfortable you feel. If you are bothered by this comment, I think in a friendship it's important to tell them in that moment, or maybe if it seems like there is a little bit of tension in the moment, maybe address it with them later and hope that they're willing to talk about it, or they're sensitive enough or value your friendship enough to actually work it out and talk about it and make sure that you're both feeling comfortable and valued in the friendship, and that you're not feeling like you are making them uncomfortable in any way, but also that they're not crossing your boundaries or making you uncomfortable in certain situations. And I think in terms of any other close relationships, like partnership, family, things like that. I think that's a little bit more of a personal thing. So I think a lot of times we tend to take out our negative emotions on the people closest to us. I mean, even the good ones, but also just as much as the good ones, you do take out the negative ones on them as well. But it's always good to be cognizant and aware of the emotions that you're experiencing in the moment. And if it seems like too much, you can tell that person in the moment that their comment made you uncomfortable, or it made you feel a certain way. Whatever it is that you're feeling, I think it's always good to check in with yourself. Be aware of what you're feeling, whether that's you feeling upset or whether you feel like frustrated with them. Whatever it is, you can tell them later on as well if you don't feel comfortable sharing in that moment. But it's definitely not good to obviously start yelling and start a fight and say like, you can't say that to me. Obviously, like, things like that happen. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's definitely better to emotionally regulate first and then share your feelings. I think the first step of that is being aware of your own feelings. So maybe it's something that most people don't work on, but I think it's what causes you to have emotional intelligence is the awareness and the ability to regulate your own emotions, and also the ability to understand and separate yourself, differentiate yourself from others, and like your emotions, your own reaction to things may not be the same as someone else, and theirs the same way. So, you know, it's good to differentiate what your emotions are from what theirs are, and then kind of differentiating between that and having the ability to, and the awareness to regulate yourself. I think that's probably what I would say with trying, like, you know, handling these situations the best way possible. When someone makes a comment about you being too much or too little or too this, too that, whatever it is that you're experiencing, it definitely doesn't make you feel good. And it is, in a way, to me, it feels invalidating. And I don't know how other people feel, but for me, when I'm out with certain people, if I'm acting myself, it's because I feel comfortable to do so. And if I'm not acting myself, like if I'm quiet, there's multiple reasons, but it may just be that I'm not feeling comfortable around this group of people, or I'm not as close with them, or just that I'm not feeling good that day. It could just simply be that I am not in a good, headspace mentally in that moment or that day. You never know what someone's going through. I know that's such a cliche thing to say, but it is true. Sometimes even the closest people to you will be going through something, and you will never know. You will not know what they're experiencing in the moment. You won't, obviously, unless they tell you. They may look upset, they may look frustrated, and it may just not have anything to do with you. So sometimes it's better to just leave that person alone, or, if you really want to help, instead of making a comment like you're being too much or you're being this and that, you can simply pull them aside and not do it in a group of people, obviously, if they're kind of looking down and upset, and just ask them if everything's okay, and if they need to talk, that you're willing to talk, whether it's in this moment or later. But just checking in with people rather than projecting your own feelings is probably the best way to go in this moment, in this case. I mean, hopefully this was helpful in me covering like how to handle these situations. And I'm not saying this is 100% foolproof, like it's gonna work every single time type of thing, but I think what I tried to touch up on was more like focusing on yourself, being self-aware of your own emotions, regulating, and then having a conversation with the other person. I think that's probably the whole gist of what you can do, the best way to handle these situations. So I hope you guys find this helpful, and in some way it was a way for you to reflect on your own experiences with others. And in this case, I will tell you guys that you are enough, you are worthy, and you are beautiful, and you don't have to change yourself for other people to like you or to tolerate you or anything like that. You just go and find better people. No, well, that's a joke, but at the same time, I think it's good to be aware of these things and still not beat yourself up over it. So I hope that was helpful, hearing that, because it's always helpful for me to hear that from other people or just from anyone that I speak to or am close to. But I will see you guys next time, and until then, take care. Bye.